10-month-old baby Saanvi Venna has been discovered murdered. She was, remember, abducted from her house in Philadelphia in the United States. The FBI has now cracked that case. Not only was Saanvi's paternal grandmother, who was taking care of her at home while her parents were away, murdered, but Saanvi also was first kidnapped and then murdered by the same man. The FBI has revealed that the murderer is someone who was known to the family. He lived in the neighborhood. He abducted Saanvi and demanded $50,000 ransom from the family. He was under the impression that the family is very well to do. He left 10 copies of the ransom note at the house of Saanvi Venna, but soon after he panicked and murdered not just Saanvi, but before that her grandmother as well. Mithila Chanduri, my colleague, in fact, has been in touch with Saanvi's extended family back here in India. She joins us with more details. What is the family's reaction? What more have they heard about the murder investigation from the FBI?
Well, what they have heard is pretty much what we've been saying also, that the FBI have cracked the case, and it's a very tragic end to this kidnapping drama that unfolded over the past 4-5 days. Saanvi Venna has been killed by a person who used to live in the same apartment building as the Vennas. He's a Telugu man from, it's yet as it unclear, but he is from Andhra Pradesh, and his name is Raghu, and he at least knew the family of Vennas from 6 months back when they moved to this particular apartment complex in King of Prussia. The family say they don't know this person personally. At least the family back home in India have never heard of this person before. They don't know him at all, and so he must have been a relatively new acquaintance to the Vennas. From what we understand in the ransom note, it was addressed directly to the father of Saanvi, and he was addressed as Shiva. And that means they were good friends and on first name basis, and quite regularly meeting each other, at least because he very personally spoke to the father of the child in that ransom note, asking for money to be dropped by the day's end if they want the child back safe and sound. But that was not to be. Even though the ransom note was found, there was no other further communication from the kidnapper to the family members, and that could possibly have been because of the murder of Saanvi's grandmother earlier in the day. What we understand is that this Raghu person actually entered the house with the intent of kidnapping Saanvi, but when her grandmother resisted, she was killed in the process, and that kind of spiraled out of control, the whole situation for the kidnapper. And he left those 10 copies of the ransom note and fled the scene of crime with the baby in tow. And at a later point of time, whether it is the same day or the next day, he also killed Saanvi.
In fact, my colleague Gurmeet Sodhi also with us on the phone line from New York. She's been listening in to the briefing that the FBI has given. What transpired between the kidnapping and the murder of Saanvi? Did the kidnapper try and negotiate with the family, Gurmeet, or did he panic and end up killing Saanvi?
He did not do any negotiations at all. He only left a $50,000 ransom note, and other than that, there was no communication that the officials have told us. And another interesting thing that we found out, when he kidnapped the baby from there to keep her quiet, he suffocated her. He put a handkerchief in her mouth so that she wouldn't cry and she would stay quiet. And it's unclear if she threw her in a bag in his car or if he just kept her in the backseat in the car, not realizing that when he put that handkerchief in her mouth to keep her close, she might have died at that time, or if she died at a later time within few hours. But she died of the suffocation from the handkerchief. Her autopsy is still on the way, so once we get more details of the autopsy, we'll be able to give you those details as well.
Gurmeet, where was Saanvi's body ultimately discovered?
The Saanvi's body, from what the officials have told us, was in the same complex of where they live. Now, even though officials believe that Saanvi might have died within a matter of hours or 24 hours of her kidnap, he still held on to her for 4 days, and he still kept demanding for the ransom, even though he knew that he had killed the child.
While he was holding on to Saanvi's body, he made no attempt to contact anyone. How did they ultimately zero in on the person who's now been arrested for Saanvi and her grandmother's murder?
They have not disclosed the information, how they came about to his arrest. All we know is that they found the body today, within the last 24 hours. We believe it's earlier today that they found the body in the Marquee complex. And now, at the arraignment, we're standing at the Montgomery County District Court in Bridgeport, Pennsylvania, which is where we're going to find out in a few minutes when they disclose all of this in front of the judge.
Has the family spoken yet?
The family has not spoken to the press. They have not come out and spoken to anyone as of now. The aunt did speak to us for a few minutes, and she was very distressed, very upset. The community came forward and they expressed their concerns as well. But other than that, no one else from the immediate family has come forward yet.
Gurmeet, also given the violent nature of the crime, the way in which the grandmother was first murdered and then Saanvi was whisked away and also killed, is the FBI absolutely clear that the intention was only to get money, or was there also the angle of enmity that was being probed earlier? Is that still at play?
They don't think there's any enmity at all because they did not know the gentleman at all. The family just moved into this complex 6 months ago, into the apartment complex 6 months ago, which is how this gentleman, Shiv, became friends with them. So he only became friends with them over the course of last 6 months during the summer. And there seems to be no relations, no animosity, nothing. So this is strictly a motive for money and nothing else, because he strongly believes that the Venna family had money and this was his way of extorting money from them. That's it.
Has any more information been released about the accused? What does he do? How did he stake out the family to get to know when he would find Saanvi and her grandmother alone?
I'm sorry, repeat that again, please.
Has the FBI released any more information about the accused who's been arrested?
No, not yet. That I think we're going to find out now at the arraignment in another 15-20 minutes. So no, nothing about the kidnapper has been released yet.
All right. In fact, we have, an image of the kidnapper now. We'll be playing that out in just a while from now. Meanwhile, Mridula also is with us on the phone line. You've been speaking to the extended family of Saanvi back here in India. Have you been able to get in touch with them today, Mridula?
Well, they have absolutely distraught. They didn't want to entertain any media at their house in Guntur as well, for obvious reasons. In fact, the grandfather of Saanvi is a heart patient we hear. In fact, he was told very late about his wife's death as well. So, in fact, the entire family has now come together in the apartment building where the grandfather is staying and is basically there to support each other in these hard times, because they were hoping for good news to come through from the US. They've been waiting for 4 days to hear that the investigations have progressed positively and that they would in fact get their child back safe and sound. But this has come as devastating news for them. They didn't even want to. They were quite inconsolable when we tried to contact them. They were in no position to even make a comment on how this could have happened. What we did manage to gather from them is that this person who has been accused is somebody they have never heard of. So he was not a family friend back from India, but somebody that the father and mother of Saanvi seems to have made friends with after going to US. So that's the only piece of information that we've managed to get from the family here, apart from the fact that they're completely distraught and completely shaken and broken after hearing this particular news. A double blow for the family, having lost the grandmother Satyavati just 4 days back. Now this news coming in from the US. Obviously, it's not something they were expecting at all. The family, in fact, Satyavati had gone there to stay with the family. We are told that a couple of her cousins also had gone there. Mother, Saanvi's grandmother and her father's sisters are also gone there for some time. They came back just a few weeks back, and Satyavati in fact stayed back to stay home to spend some more time with her grandchild. And now they are getting to hear this tragic news. It's something that they are not able to fathom at all.
Just stay on with us, Mridula and Gurmeet both. In fact, what you see on your TV screens right now is that man who not only killed Saanvi's grandmother Satyavati, but then brutally murdered the 10-month-old toddler as well. This is the man who was in the same apartment building as the Venna family. His name has been variously described as Raghu. The FBI has given another name. He lived in the same apartment block. He kidnapped Saanvi after murdering her grandmother, left behind 10 copies of a ransom note where he asked for $50,000 in return of Saanvi. The ransom note also, we'll get it to you in a minute. In fact, the ransom note says that if you inform the police and if you do not cough up $50,000, you will find pieces of your daughter's body. You will find her body in pieces strewn all over. That's the kind of note that he left behind. For 4 days he held on to Saanvi after killing her, and while kidnapping her, he also murdered her paternal grandmother, who was taking care of Saanvi at home when she tried to resist the kidnapping bid. And that brings me to my next question to you, Gurmeet. There are a few things which stand out in this entire story, which is which the FBI might have clarified on. First, the fact that no valuable was taken from the Venna household. If this man's motive was to get money, why did he leave the valuables untouched? And the second, the apartment block where the Venna family stayed seems fairly populated. Despite that, no one seems to have heard this crime being committed. Gurmeet, can you hear me? All right, seem to have lost the line with Gurmeet there. But Mridula, you also heard the statement that was given by the FBI. Did they have anything to say about these two aspects of the case, that a violent crime is taking place in an apartment block and no one seems to have heard it?
When the crime seems to have happened between 8 a.m. and 1 p.m., that was the time when most of the residents were out in their offices. They were all out working, is what we understand. In fact, that was the reason why Saanvi and her grandmother were alone at home. Her grandmother was in fact taking care of her while her parents went to work as well. So it could possibly be the fact that a lot of people, residents of that particular locality, were in fact out working, and children must have, older children must have been in school, and that's the reason why nobody seemed to have heard anything. But then again, the person who knocked on the door and to whom the grandmother of Saanvi, Satyavati, opened the door was somebody obviously who must have met the family before them. He must have met Satyavati before, so she would have probably allowed him entry into the house because she had known him. He was in the same apartment building. So that could possibly be the reason why.
All right, Mridula and Gurmeet, thank you very much for joining us.